ga-elekọta ihe a ga-ekwu taa bụ prọfesọ Nduka. Ndị Igbo ndewonu. Ndị ga-agwa anyị okwu n'anyasị a ha ga-enwe ihe dịka elekere, ha ga-enwe ihe dịka 15 minutes ha ga-eji agwa anyị okwu. Biko ihe nnachi iri ụlọ ụfọdụ n'ime anyị ebe a amụbeghị anyị mgbe a lụrụ agha. Ọnya ji si ka anyị nwee oge a nwee semina ka anyị were kọwara ndị na-amaghị ihe mere mgbe a lụrụ agha, ka unu wee ghọta ndị ụmụaka nọ n'etiti ebe a. So biko unu gee ntị ndị a ga-agwa unu okwu. Otu o jiri kwuo, onye ga-agwa anyị okwu mbụ wu Dr. Odenigbo. Ọ ga-agwa anyị okwu maka early life of Odumegwu Ojukwu, his early childhood and his education in Britain. Ihe ndị a ka ọ ga-agwa anyị. Then ndị nke ọzọ ga-agwakwa anyị ihe ga-eso ya. Dr. Odenigbo.
Thank you, moderator. Let me begin by saying those the Ojukwu family for the loss of a son. Let me begin by saying ndo to the Ojukwu family for the loss of a son, a husband, and a father. Ndo to the Nnewi community for the loss of a great son. Ndo to Ndi Igbo for the loss of a great leader. Ndo to Nigeria for the loss of a patriot. Ndo to all Africa for the loss of a legend. Ndo to the international community for the loss of a champion of justice, peace, and freedom. We thank God at the same time for the gift of the life of Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu. Now, like father, like son, in no instance is this saying more appropriate than in the story of Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu. By the age of 25, his father, Salui Philip Ojukwu, had married, but it was a short-lived union. He and his young wife soon separated, but by that time, the wife was with child. She was staying at Zungeru in northern Nigeria, when in November 1933, their son was born. He was named Chukwuemeka. When he was 3, the father came from Lagos and reclaimed the child. Once in the father's household, the small boy came under the influence of his powerful personality. Emeka became the pride of his father's life, and he sought to mold the boy into a mirror image of himself. Salui was a man of iron determination, strong willpower, and a patrician within his household. His son, following his example, developed much the same characteristics. In Emeka's infancy, the father decided that his son should have what he had not, and that was a first-class education. The boy was sent first to St. Patrick's School in Lagos, the youngest of his year. From there, he went to the CMS Grammar School, again at an age much younger than the rest of the boys. At the age of 10, in 1944, he progressed to King's College, the Lagos public school modeled along British public school lines, and became the youngest ever to attend King's College. By the time the boy attained the age of 12 in November 1945, the father was both immensely rich and respected. He decided that the boy should be educated in England. The college of choice was Epsom College in Surrey, where the 13-year-old Emeka arrived to begin a program of schooling designed to turn him into an English gentleman. This was a time when it was rare to find a black boy at an English boarding school. After 6 years at Epsom, Emeka proceeded to Lincoln College, Oxford, in 1952. His father wanted him to become a lawyer, but he wanted to read modern history. Emeka spent 1 year reading law, then switched to modern history. In 1955, he took his Bachelor of Arts degree, came home to Lagos, and later returned to Oxford to receive his Master of Arts degree. There was not the slightest reason why this young dandy should not have become Nigeria's playboy, enjoying a life of self-indulgence on the basis of his father's wealth and eventual succession into his father's shoes as head of all the Ojukwu companies. This was in fact what Ojukwu Sr. wanted Emeka to do. But the young man wanted to prove himself in his own way, capable of doing things by his own talents, able to cut his own path in life. He told his astounded father he was joining the Nigerian Civil Service as an administrative officer. Even then, he could have used his father's influence to jump the first few bottom grades and start halfway up the ladder. His Oxford degree would justify such a leap. Instead, Emeka insisted on beginning as what was regarded as the lowest level of the administrative class, Assistant District Officer, ADO, with a posting in a bush village. It was an odd choice for a Master of Arts from Oxford and son of Nigeria's biggest millionaire to make. Within hours of informing his father of his decision, Emeka had packed his bag and left the luxurious mansion in Lagos for a room in a small tin-roofed bungalow at Udi. Emeka threw himself into the job he chose with ferocious energy. First, he learned the Igbo language to be able to communicate with the peasants and villagers of the area he now had to help administer. He abandoned the routine paperwork in the office and went out into the villages and into the fields to work among the peasants, much to the displeasure of his boss, the British district officer, Colonel William Stanley King. During that time at Udi, and later at Omahia and Aba, his two other postings between 1955 and 1957, Emeka learned that Africa is the land and the people of the land. The teeming millions, poor, often sick, ill-educated, ill-fed, without a voice in the choice of their own destiny. When Emeka was still at Udi, it was announced one day that the governor of Eastern Nigeria, Sir Clement Peace, was coming on a visit of inspection. For days before the arrival of the great man, the district office was painted and polished until it shone. On the morning of the visit, District Officer King and Emeka were standing rigidly to attention on the forecourt of the office when the Rolls Royce from Enugu came rolling through the gate. Immediately, Colonel King threw up a quivering salute and held it there. It happened that Sir Clement had known Emeka since he was a schoolboy, and Emeka had for years called him Uncle Clem. Sometimes, on an evening, Emeka would take his sports car and motor over to Enugu for a game of tennis or a cool beer with the governor. Unfortunately, Colonel King knew none of this. Sir Clement got out of his Rolls Royce, nodded and smiled, said good morning to Colonel King, and then turned to Emeka. "Hello, Emeka, my boy," he said. "Hello, Uncle Clem," Emeka said. "Now," said the governor, putting a friendly arm round Emeka's shoulders and leading him away, "you must show me where you live and how you are getting on." They had walked 100 yards before Emeka felt obliged to remind the governor that Colonel King was still standing at attention, one arm up in salute. "Good God," said the governor, "he isn't, is he?" With that, he went back across the parade ground to dismiss the outraged district officer. After the visit was over, the district officer confronted Emeka. "I didn't know you knew the governor," he said. "You never told me." "You never asked," Emeka said. What the good colonel thought of his subordinate, who called the governor Uncle Clem, and spent his time digging ditches with the peasants, was never put on record. From Mudi, Emeka went for a spell to Maya and then to Aba, completing his education in the understanding of those he now regarded as his people, the Igbos. From Aba, he was posted to Calabar. Now, it happened that there was a superstition connected with Calabar. It was that the Efik women of the town were able to cast a spell on a young man and completely bewitch him. For all his wealth and position, Salui Odumegwu, it would appear, believed this. So, on learning of the posting, he simply picked up the telephone and rang his good friend, the Governor General, Sir John Macpherson, and within an hour, the transfer was cancelled. For Emeka, this was the last straw. He had joined the civil service to try to get away from his father's influence, but he was sent to the east, where the Ojukwu name was everywhere, and the father in Lagos cast a very long shadow. Now, with a single phone call, that father had cancelled his transfer. Emeka realized that if he was ever to be free to make a career for himself on his merits, it would have to be in the one institution left in Nigeria that was truly non-regional, and where his father's name, wealth, and influence would simply count for nothing. Frustrated and angry, in the autumn of 1957, he applied to join the Nigerian army. Those who applied to enter the army, even as commissioned officers, were inevitably those with a primary education and perhaps a smattering of secondary. So, the arrival of an MA from Oxford shook the Governor General, the Army High Command, all of whom were English officers, and most of all, Emeka's father. Salui was livid with anger, and there was a big row between father and son. But as usual, the son refused to back down. As a result, he was banned from his father's house, and for 3 years, his father refused to talk to him or communicate with him in any way. Unable to prevent his son from applying, Salui hatched a scheme. Through his friendship with the Governor General, Sir John Macpherson, Emeka's father brought pressure to bear to ensure that his son was refused entry as an officer cadet. He would never enter as a private, both men thought, and even if he did, he would never stick it. They did not count on the willpower of Emeka Odumegwu. Unable to gain a cadetship, he joined as a private. For 3 months, Emeka stuck it out. He did his square bashing with the rest, ate like them with his fingers, and like them, kept the barracks swept and spotless with broom and swab cloth. For light relief, he was put to scraping clean the insides of toilet bowls with an old razor blade. The British officers knew who Emeka was, and that their orders from the Governor General were to make it rough for him so that he would quit. He refused to quit. In the end, the depot commander said, "I have had enough of this comic opera. Governor General or no Governor General, you are applying for an officer's commission, and that's an order." It took a month for the papers to come through. From Zaria, the new cadet went first to Teshi in Ghana, and then to Officer Cadet School at Eton Hall in England in 1958. From Eton Hall, Emeka went straight to the infantry school at Warminster, and after that, to Small Arms School at Hythe. He then returned to Nigeria and to his first posting with the 5th Battalion at Kaduna. In the summer of 1959, Emeka was sent away to the Teshi Frontier School in Ghana to lecture in infantry tactics. In December 1960, Emeka returned from Ghana to learn that he had been promoted to the rank of captain, and 6 months later, he was promoted to the rank of major. This led to a strange development. Emeka was celebrating the promotion with a group of fellow officers in his quarters in Lagos when a huge black limousine drew up. Out stepped his father, carrying 3 bottles of champagne. This was the father who banned him from his house when he joined the army as a private soldier, who had not spoken to him for more than 3 years. Salui entered the house. "Will you drink with me, Emeka?" he asked. The other officers made their excuses and left. The father and son finished the 3 bottles of champagne. When they had done so, Emeka asked his father why he had changed his mind to heal the breach between them. Salui stared back into the past. "Do you remember," he said, "how I once told you the story of my own father and how he was humiliated at the Nkwo marketplace on the orders of a British officer back in 1913? Well, that officer was a major. For years, I thought a major was the biggest and most powerful thing in the world. And now, don't you see, my son is a major." So the rift was here, and the two men never quarreled again. Emeka was posted to the 1st Brigade in Kaduna and served with the Nigerian contingent with the United Nations Peacekeeping Force in the Congo. From the Congo, he was whisked off to Latima in England to attend the Joint Services Staff College. He returned home in January 1963, both to promotion to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel and to appointment to the post of Quartermaster General of the Nigerian Army, the first Nigerian to hold that post. At the end of the year, Emeka's tenure as Quartermaster General ended. He was posted to the 5th Battalion Kano, his first independent command. He held that position until January 1966, when he was posted to the East as military governor of Eastern Nigeria. I was a civil servant then and was privileged to be posted to the State House in Enugu by the Secretary to the Military Government as one of Ojukwu's personal assistants. Working in Ojukwu State House was a completely new experience for us. Not business as usual. The vehicle will pick us up from our homes at about 7 a.m. and send us home only when Ojukwu was done with the business of the day at 9 or 10 p.m. He was a hard worker who kept his staff on their toes. The first test of strength for Ojukwu was on May 29, 1966, when an insurrection broke out in the north, and thousands of Igbos and other Easterners were hounded and slaughtered without warning. Thousands fled to the east as refugees, with tales of unspeakable atrocities. Ojukwu made it a point of duty to go to the Enugu railway station to receive and console the refugees, some of whom were maimed and wounded. Many eminent Nigerians, both in the north and south, condemned the killings, and after receiving assurances from northern leaders that the killings would not happen again, Ojukwu convinced the refugee Easterners to return to their stations in the north, asking them to believe that the killings had been part of the price we've had to pay for the ideal of one Nigeria. But on July 29, 1966, the country witnessed another military coup in which the military head of state, Major General Aguiyi Ironsi, and his host, and military governor of Western Nigeria, Lieutenant Colonel Francis Adekunle Fajuyi, were killed by northern officers. The country was thrown into chaos and confusion as the federal radio continued to broadcast martial music for days without any announcement. It was clear that the country had descended into anarchy. As we sat in our offices at the State House, wondering what was going on, the commanding officer in charge of the 2nd Division of the Nigerian Army, Major Ogunewe, rushed into the State House, made straight for Ojukwu's office. We did not know what composition took place, but we later learned that Major Ogunewe advised Ojukwu to evacuate the State House immediately for his own safety and that of his entire staff. The 2nd Division of the Nigerian Army was only a few blocks from the State House. Major Ogunewe had just managed to forestall an attempt by some 800 soldiers of northern Nigeria origin to gain access to the armory. Working under orders from Lagos, these northern soldiers in Enugu intended to attack the State House and topple Ojukwu. At first, Ojukwu resisted the idea of leaving the State House, but when he realized that Major Ogunewe was unrelenting, he ceded to the Major. I'm afraid this is where I'm going to stop because time is against me.
Five more minutes.
I know that many of you will want to continue.
5 more minutes.
It's very interesting.